Hello and shalom, everybody. My name is Julia Jassy, and you are listening to Nice Jewish Girls, brought to you by Unpacked, a division of Open Door Media. On today's episode, we are speaking with the Emmy-nominated and board-certified plastic surgeon behind the hit Netflix show Skin Decision, Dr. Sheila Nazarian. Dr. Nazarian has had a super successful career. She performs plastic surgeries for millions of viewers, while emphasizing body positivity and confidence in her patients. And as she's reached tremendous success, she's built a platform, a following of people inspired by her work. But she decided to build more than that. She's used her platform to do more than just promote her work. She's used it to defend her people. And I want to ask her what inspired her to use her platform in this way. Does she see it as a risk? Was there backlash? And ultimately, is she able to draw hope from it? I am so excited for you guys to meet her. Let's do this thing. Dr. Sheila Nazarian is an Emmy-nominated and board-certified plastic surgeon with a private practice in Beverly Hills. She has a master's in medical management from the Marshall School of Business at USC. And she also serves as assistant professor in the Division of Plastic Surgery at the University of Southern California. She is the founder of Nazarian Plastic Surgery, Spa 26, the Skin Spot e-commerce site, and the Nazarian Institute, where she brings thought leaders to tech business owners in the luxury space think big, branding, innovation, and growth. Dr. Nazarian is the star of the Emmy-nominated Netflix original series Skin Decision, Before and After. She is married to neurosurgeon Dr. Fardad Mobin, and she has 3 children. Dr. Nazarian, thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you.
My pleasure, Julia. Great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. We had the chance to sit down and speak back on Jewish Identity Crisis, so it's really great to have you back and to have this conversation, and I'm really excited to get into it.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So let's start from the beginning. Can you tell us a bit about where you're from and your background as a Jewish woman?
I'm originally Persian from Iran. I was actually born as an anchor baby in New York on vacation. My mom came here when she was 9 months pregnant, so I would be a U.S. citizen. And then went back. This was 1979, so the Iranian Revolution happened, and we were kind of stuck there. They wouldn't let Jewish people leave, even though there was, some very outward persecution as well as very passive aggressive behavior as well. And then in 1985 was the Iran-Iraq War, and there was bombs flying, and one of them landed a couple blocks away from our house. So my family was like, okay, we got to get out of here. But it wasn't so easy for us. So my father was a pathologist, and he said he was going to go to give a lecture somewhere. And they said, okay, fine, you can go, but you have to leave the passports of the rest of your family with us. So he left our passports with the government. I didn't know what was happening because I was only 6.5 at the time. So my mom's obviously not going to tell me. But one day we went to the bazaar, which was an outdoor marketplace. And we got into the back of a covered, almost pickup truck. And they put tarp over us and then covered us with corn. And, my mom was just be quiet, be quiet. And we were smuggled across the border into Pakistan. And then I remember we were in a clay kind of hut bathroom, which was basically a hole in the ground that you straddled. And in that bathroom, my mom told me we were going to America, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to meet Michael Jackson, because we had all these bootleg Michael Jackson videos.
Yeah.
So I Thriller. I was like, oh my God. So we did spend a night in the desert, and we were seen by border police, and we were shot at, but we got away.
Wow.
And we were in Pakistan waiting for visas for about 3 months. And that was the first time that I actually experienced anti-Semitism, personally as a child. I was in, they would have weddings in the hotel a lot. And I was downstairs at one of the weddings. We would go watch and see what the bride was wearing and stuff.
Yeah,
I was a little
absolutely.
kid. But I don't know how, but some woman was like, are you Jewish to me? Some adult woman. And I was like, yes. And then she spit on me.
Wow.
And that was that was really the first time that I was like, what the heck,
You were a child.
I was
Don't understand what that means.
6.5, almost 7. Yeah. And then after we got our visas, we went to Vienna. We stayed there for a month and actually reunited with my father after not seeing him for a few months. And then we all came to the US together. So I think the Persian community that came, in a very similar way, a lot of Persian Jews, escaped from Iran, whether it was pretending to be somebody else and getting on a flight or going through the desert. I mean, there was a lot of different ways, but I feel like everyone has a similar story. So we went to, we came to New York first, and then it was too cold, so we moved to Los Angeles. And, the Persian Jews of Iran are very spiritual and very, like, a little bit superstitious.
Yeah.
And my mom, it was funny, I just did a post yesterday about it on my Instagram, but my mom was like, observe Shabbat in her own way, which meant like, hey, will you turn on the stove for me? Or like, even if we had to go to temple, she would like have us open the car door. She would sit inside, we would close the door. So she wouldn't like technically be touching the car, but she would like get in the car to go to temple.
It was really funny. Yeah.
I know, it was really funny, but I just remember
it's really funny.
I just remember like that being, kind of, I don't know. It was always like in our lives. I didn't actually do Hebrew school. I wasn't actually like officially bat mitzvahed. My bat mitzvah was me and my mom taking like a lone trip, just the two of us to Israel together. Went to the Wailing Wall. I had like a rabbi at the Wailing Wall say a prayer over me, and that was my bat mitzvah. But I just I've always felt very Jewish. I was a Bronfman fellow, so I got to go to Israel with Jews of all different, like, I don't know. There was even a boy whose last name was Christian because his father was Christian and his mother was Jewish. So it was like all sorts of Jews to bring together and like really unite, and kind of kill those divides that are nuts, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So that was like my first real like, whoa, like that was like my first time actually reading and discussing Jewish things was when I was 16. And then I did go to Columbia University. Wasn't much anti-Semitism when I was there. And actually the only reason why my father let me go is because it did have a large Jewish population. And my dad was like, you need to meet a nice Jewish boy. Like you have to go to a school that has Jewish boys.
Yeah.
So I went to Columbia, and then after that I went to Albert Einstein, which is Yeshiva's medical school. And that was like another kind of awakening into, Judaism and being surrounded by people that were religious. And then after that, I, came to USC, finished my residency, started my practice. My kids go to a Jewish day school here, mainly because my sister-in-law's kids were there. And I was like, okay, it's like really close to my house and really close to my office. And I was like, this is fabulous. And I don't think I really appreciated it. I was like, why isn't it more academic? And like, why isn't it more this? And after the most recent conflict, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that my kids spent time reading Torah and Tanakh and like all, and like really learning their roots and learning their history. Whereas before I was like, the math needs to be harder,
Yeah. It's really interesting because you talked about this story leaving Iran and how when you were a kid, that kind of anecdote about Michael Jackson and that being your focus. And now you spend a lot of time being really vocal about anti-Semitism and the persecution that Jews have faced and continue to face in many parts of the world. Looking back at that experience as an adult now, has that shifted the way that you view your role in the Jewish community?
Well, I mean, of course. I mean, I think that's a year ago, even before this conflict, my daughter's starting high school. My oldest kid is starting high school. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like 4 years away from going to an anti-Semitic college campus. And I don't want her to not know who she is. And if I don't start speaking up about being Jewish, then she's not going to feel safe in college. And so I just started speaking up about it, but just like little things like Shabbat Shalom, like on my post that went out on Fridays, like that was an act of like bravery,
Yeah, but I mean, it comes with the backlash because anti-Semitism is all over the place. So it is. Yeah.
And then with the most recent conflict, I started seeing my colleagues spreading like lies and the same 5 words that everybody was using about Israel. And I had more followers than them. So I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, if you're going like 3 posts a day, I'm going to do 20 posts a day. Because I just felt like a responsibility. And then also I witnessed what happened to Iran. My family witnessed what happened to Iran, and we actually had to escape our country because of what happened. And I started seeing the same verbiage and the same pattern happening in the US. And I was like, I'm not going down without a fight. And meanwhile, the trauma is still there. My family's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? Like, just afraid for, physical safety, afraid for verbal abuse, afraid for monetary, issues like losing business and all of that. And I was like, you know what? I think that, people talk about FU money, but there's also FU success, right? So I'm not at FU money yet, but I'm definitely at FU success. So if somebody leaves me, if a patient doesn't come to me because they're anti-Semitic or they don't like what I'm saying, there's like 10 more waiting to take that spot. So I am at like FU success at this point. And I just said, what did I build this for? If I built this platform, is it for like posting before and afters of breast augmentations and fashion photos? Like, I enjoy that, but really I've built this platform. What am I going to use it for? What is my purpose? And so I just said, if I don't say anything, I can't sleep well at night. Like, I have to speak up. And so I just did. And I think on the first day when I posted, I lost 3,000 followers just with like one post. And I was just like, what? I got to keep going. Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't care who I lose. Like, if I built this full of anti-Semites,
what's the point?
Yeah. So I just kept going, and I didn't know anybody else who was doing that.
Yeah.
So it did feel kind of lonely. I know there's like Jewish activists and Jewish accounts that were posting it, but I feel like I was one of the only ones that was not a Jewish account posting.
You have your own platform. It's about something totally different,
and not an echo chamber. So it was like, it was kind of risky, but so in the first month, I lost 30,000 followers, and then gained, I think, like 27,000 followers. So I just felt like the whole following went through this seismic shift. But what happened is people became obsessed with me. Yeah. Whereas before, people were kind of following, but maybe didn't like me, like here or there. Maybe they didn't even like me, but they kind of were just following to see what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. So they could like talk behind my back. But then people that I actually know were talking behind my back were coming up to me and being like, we love you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. This is the most important thing you've ever done. Like, blah, blah, blah. Even though I help people every day. Yeah. I think this was just, it struck a chord with people. And I think it's so sad that in the US, the home of the free and the brave, just to speak your opinion is considered brave and courageous. Where that's why my family came to this country, was so that we could speak what we wanted to and not be afraid of who was listening and what was going to happen to us. And now it's happening here. And so I can't go silently into the night. Like I forgot how to shut up is what I tell people. I just like,
that's our legacy though, right?
No, I know, but I think what's cool too, Julia, is like when you start doing that, you get people who actually appreciate you and love you for the real you. Yeah. And they love you because they share the same core values. And I think that's so powerful. I wish I would have done it sooner, to be honest with you, even though, I mean, it was not easy. It was the first time in my life I've ever experienced anxiety. I would literally wake up with anxiety. I've never had that before.
I can definitely understand. I'm sure a lot of our listeners can too.
Yeah.
One thing I'm really curious about is you built this entire platform, and you talked a little bit about it in terms of your Instagram following. But you also are a part of an Emmy-nominated Netflix show that talks about your career and the work that you do. If any of our listeners haven't seen you on Netflix already, they should, because it's great. Skin Decisions, as you said before, is an Emmy-nominated show. You took this platform that you already had, and you start talking about anti-Semitism as well. How has that kind of affected the reaction people have had to your show? If people watched it more, has there been any backlash? How has that been kind of offline and more on the professional world?
Well, Netflix doesn't really share data like that. So I don't really know how it's affected how many people watch the show. But what is cool about the Netflix show is it is in 90 countries. So it really breaks me out of the echo chamber. So people aren't just finding me because of who has reposted me on social media, but because of the show, I'm getting new followers of all different beliefs, all different countries, all different languages every single day. Yeah. And I think that's really powerful because a lot of people, I'll be the first person, the first activist they've heard with the opposing, story. And so I think that's really a blessing and an opportunity to educate people and to give them some new ideas that they can think about. And a lot of times I'm maybe the only Jew they've ever met.
Really?
And so I try to post things that really humanize and show me as a representative in that light in a beautiful way, in a generous way, and a loving way, and honestly in a very honest way. Like, I'll bring up topics that a lot of people I think are really scared to bring up, and I'm actually starting my own podcast soon.
Really?
So that
I'm excited for people to listen.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that I can bring people with opposing views to have real conversations again. Like, I want to bring a transgender athlete and a female athlete who's lost her spot in nationals to a transgender female. And I want to put them on the same show, and I want them to talk because I want to learn. But I feel like everything is so like, oh, we're so afraid to talk about it. And if you even talk about the other side, then you're canceled, which, by the way, I don't think exists, but that's another topic. But I think it's just all about bringing conversations back because, again, it goes back to my own children. If they go to college and they're afraid to have nuanced conversations, what's the point of college?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really interested to see kind of how that translates to your work as well. And kind of the conversations that you have with clients about how to make them feel comfortable and confident in their own bodies. But also, I think an issue that a lot of Jews think about all the time is how do we kind of balance this being comfortable in our bodies with the understanding of external pressures around our appearances, like Eurocentric gender norms or the idea of our noses kind of being this thing that we have to fix. But also kind of balancing, taking control of that and also making sure we're doing it with a positive kind of mindset. How does that translate into the work that you do? What are these conversations that you're having with your patients about seeking that positivity?
I mean, I don't really judge someone's decision to make healthy choices. So, and I try not to bring my own opinions into it. I approach it almost anatomically. And there are things that are, you know, it's not even stereotypically more attractive. There's just things that are universally more attractive. And if someone's comfortable in their nose or whatever, fantastic. Go kill it. Like, love that for you. But if someone comes in and they're like, I think my face would look more proportional or more in harmony with a smaller nose, or to take this bump away or whatever, I just look at them and I say, is this safe? Is this person safe? Is this a healthy decision that they're making? Are they mentally stable to undergo this procedure? And if all of those things are yes, and one of the things that I always tell people, if it's something that you think about more than 3 or 4 times a week, and you're young and you're healthy and it's safe to do so, just fix it. Like, but nobody's forcing you to do so.
Has there ever been a time when you've had to tell someone you don't think this procedure is right for them?
Absolutely, all the time. But I'll tell you again, I think branding is everything. So I put out a very strong female persona online, and I attract mostly very strong females that are highly educated and successful. And so it's very rare that I have to tell someone no. But at the same time, I think the time that it comes up more is with my younger Instagram influencers that come in. They kind of feel like, oh, I want this and I want that. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, here's what we're actually going to do today.
Yeah.
So I think for some patients, I'm a mom. For some patients, I'm a friend. For some patients, I'm a sister, so on and so forth. And so I think it's very like psychosurgical what I do,
absolutely,
or psycho spa, depending on what it is that I'm doing. But I think there, is a certain psychology that's behind everything, and it's on me to really partner with the patients and help them make a decision that's going to make them happy. Like, I just put a post up 2 days ago, or second post, I don't know how many days ago it was, but it says if you're not happy without it, then you're not going to be happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to make sure these people are capable of happiness, because surgery is not going to make anyone happy if they're unhappy.
Absolutely. And how have you found this work to be empowering, working with these women and, like you said, attracting this strong kind of female persona in people? How have you found that to be an empowering experience for them and for you as well?
Well, I think we're like-minded. And so I spend a lot of time actually talking about business and tax planning and vacation spots. And I always say, when I go home, I'm just kind of like socialized out, because I'm kind of like on and social with my patients all day long. And so, they kind of are very like-minded. And I think most of the satisfaction of what I do comes from those patient interactions and those conversations now, because after a while, the surgeries aren't as challenging anymore and they don't seem as artistic to me. It's sort of like I just see it and do it now. Whereas before it was like, ooh, I have to think about it and I have to plan it. Now it's just sort of like it just works out.
Yeah.
And so it really is those patient conversations and the how cool my patients are and how successful they are that makes my job really satisfying.
I think that's something that I've seen a lot in the Jewish community and outside of the Jewish community when it comes to women in positions of power that we maybe couldn't have been in a century ago. I find that we often are looking out for other women and trying to give each other that mentorship. I feel like after almost every conversation I have on this podcast, I talk with the person and we kind of exchange advice. We talk about kind of where we've been, where we're going to. And I think that's a big reason why we started this podcast and why I'm really excited to be hosting it, because it gives women the access to having these mentors. For you, is this something that you always saw yourself doing when you went into college? And was it a hard path to take as a Jewish woman, as someone who is coming from a different background than a lot of people in your class? How has overcoming that kind of hardship growing up given you the strength to advise other women? And is this something you always saw yourself kind of becoming?
Well, I think, coming here in the first grade, I didn't even speak English. I was so super skinny, like incredibly skinny. I got teased a lot for that. And so I think a lot of it for a really long time was kind of proving people wrong. Even people in the Persian community were like, well, why would you want to be a surgeon? As soon as you have kids, you're going to have to quit, because that's what they were taught, that as soon as you have kids, you can't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of it for a really long time was just like, watch me, like I'm going to do it. But then about 5 years ago, I realized that's kind of unhealthy, because if you're just, working so hard to prove people wrong, you're not really living for yourself. You're living to shove it in somebody else's face.
For sure.
And so I just let that all go. And I was like, I did it. Like, where am I going now? And how is it going to improve the quality of life of myself and my family and my employees, sometimes. And so I'm just making decisions for me now. And so kind of like making decisions and saying yes to things that gratify me and are going to challenge me and make me feel like I have purpose. And so that's kind of where all the Jewish activism came in, is because if anything, I could lose money, but it's giving me so much gratification and pulling people into my life that I otherwise might not have met.
For sure.
But yeah, I think, unfortunately, most of the people telling me, not to do it were within my Jewish community. And I kind of overcame that, and I understand why, because it's hard. It was really hard. I mean, I had 3 kids during surgical residency. It was
really
incredibly difficult.
Hard. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I literally would drive home some days post call and sit in the garage and call my husband and be like, you have to come get me out of the car. Like I can't stand up.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was incredibly difficult, physically and mentally, but you know what? I mean, I wanted to have my kids younger, and I didn't want to have to undergo infertility treatments and all that crazy. And so I just did it, and I'm glad I did now. But at the same time, I missed a lot of their childhood. Like I missed a lot of their baby parts, which is like the cute parts.
Yeah.
But definitely making up for it now. Because I am able to, kind of choose my schedule and pick my patients and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and then the other thing too is a lot of the stuff that I thought was a disadvantage, like being brown, being a female, anything that I almost thought would be a disadvantage. After business school, I realized like differentiation is everything. And so I leveraged all of those things to my advantage, to differentiate myself. That's been it. So being brown, a lot of people, for example, lasers, there's lasers that are good for Caucasian light-skinned individuals. If I used one of those on me, I would burn and I would turn more hyperpigmented. So there's lasers that are for brown and darker skinned individuals, and there's lasers for lighter skinned individuals. And I have both. And so I get the trust of darker skinned individuals being like, you understand my skin because you have the same skin.
Absolutely.
As a female, I'm able to test every single device on myself and show it on my social media. I actually inject my own face with fillers and Botox live. And so that's been a huge advantage because women are like, well, she doesn't look weird. And they're able to see.
Her. She's doing it to herself.
I trust her. She does it to herself.
Yeah.
And also, you know, maintaining a certain aesthetic. Like I have 15 syringes of filler in my face all the time. I haven't moved my forehead in 14 years, but it still looks natural and it still looks harmonious and I don't look fake. And so I think women are like, I trust her. And so I use that to my advantage. Whereas if a man maybe did that, maybe it might not come off as authentic or likable even. Things like
you get it. I mean, it's like, it's something that when women are coming to you, they understand that you understand the pressure that comes with being a woman. Like you understand the social and you understand all of it. And
it's just like little things. Like for example, in a breast augmentation, instead of putting the incision directly under the breast, I take it a little bit off to the side so that if they want to wear a J-Lo dress, their incision won't show. It's just like little tiny things like that that I think just make people be like, yeah, I want her.
Yeah. That really brings us to the last question and the question that I ask all of our guests here on Nice Jewish Girls. And it's kind of going back to the idea of what I said earlier, that this podcast is supposed to be a chance to give women all over the world access to mentors in fields they probably never thought of before, with people they'll probably never get to meet before. And I'm curious too, because you talked about your own experiences with people telling you, you know, you can't be a surgeon and have kids, or different things that you've had to overcome throughout your career. And that you have a daughter now who's probably going to see her mom setting this really strong example and want to follow in your footsteps. And that really ties really well into our last question, which is, given all that we've spoken about today, what's one piece of advice you'd want to give to our listeners, probably our younger listeners really, who are hearing you speak and want to know about how to navigate the world as a strong Jewish woman?
I think one thing I'd want to get across is know your history and know the talking points that other people are going to come at you with as a strong Jewish woman, a vocal woman. I think be proud of who you are and be authentic to who you are. Authenticity never disappoints. It will just attract amazing people into your life. And I think the other thing that I've discovered is you can't have people love you and be obsessed with you unless you have an equal amount of people who hate you and don't like you. And it's okay to choose a side and to speak up for something that you believe in.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Nazarian. It's been so wonderful to speak to you and to hear all about your story and your experiences. It's incredibly appreciated.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. Dr. Nazarian's story is, well, it's tremendous. She survived amid insurmountable odds, and she's persevered with hope. She's become a successful doctor. She's created a successful practice, and she starred in a successful Netflix series. Again, time and time again, defying insurmountable odds at every turn. And that is the story of Jewish survival. No matter what we face, no matter what we feel, no matter where we come from, nor where we go to, we find a way to survive. We don't just survive, though. We thrive. We create beautiful diaspora cultures. We find a way to revive Zionism, to preserve Jewish culture, to reinvigorate Jewish language. And it's a beautiful legacy to be a part of. And this, my friends, is where we'll leave you for today's episode of Nice Jewish Girls. Hopefully a bit smarter and a bit more inspired. Your feedback is critical to making this show the best it can be. So contact us at podcast@jewishimpact.com. And don't forget to join us next week, when we'll be speaking with Jewish advocate and influencer Amy Albertson. Nice Jewish Girls is a production of Unpacked, a division of Open Door Media. Rivki Stern is our producer, and I am your host, Julia Jassy. Check out jewishimpact.com for everything Unpacked related, and subscribe to our other podcasts. And don't forget to follow Unpacked at all of the social media places. Just look for @JewishUnpacked. Talk to you later, ladies.